The 2018 Formula One season was set up to be one of the greatest of all time. Two four-time world champions, who had won 8 out of the previous 9 championships, going head-to-head for their 5th world championship in what was titled The Fight for 5. Sebastian Vettel was looking to emulate his hero Michael Schumacher by giving Ferrari their first world championship in years, while Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes were preparing for their toughest fight since the turbo-hybrid era began. While Hamilton and Mercedes were able to rise to the occasion with the Brit taking his 5th world championship, matching the legendary Juan Manuel Fangio, Sebastian Vettel and Ferrari's challenge completely collapsed over the course of the season. Between driver errors, awful strategy calls, poor management and the death of their CEO, to say that this was a disappointing year for the Scuderia would be an understatement, as the 2018 season left a permanent black mark on all the big players at Ferrari. Sebastian Vettel would never perform at the same level again, with many questioning his true talent compared to other top drivers, with the German no longer considered to be on the same level as Hamilton or Alonso. Kimi Räikkönen would be replaced by Charles Leclerc at the end of the season and went to Alfa Romeo. Team principal Maurizio Arrivabene would also leave the team after allegations of him being a bully and not understanding how to run an F1 team. He was replaced by Chief Technical Officer Mattia Binotto, who would also become a controversial figure during his time as team principal. And of course, Ferrari's strategy team has since become a laughingstock among F1 fans for their bizarre strategy calls in 2018, as well as the following seasons. 2018 led to an immense frustration amongst fans, with much of the blame being put on Sebastian Vettel and his mistakes. Many people have claimed that if other less error-prone drivers such as Fernando Alonso had driven for Ferrari in 2018, they would have won the championship. But is this possible? If Vettel had a flawless season with no driver errors, could the German have achieved his dream of emulating his hero by winning a world championship with Ferrari? In this video, we will go through every single mistake that Sebastian Vettel made in 2018, work out where he would have finished without the mistake, and eventually see if the German would have scored enough points to win the World Championship. I will also mention the mistakes that Ferrari made as well, although I will still only change Vettel's driver errors. The first 3 races of the season will remain unaffected. Vettel was able to win the Australian Grand Prix after cleverly using a loophole in the regulations to speed through the pit lane entrance and exit during a virtual safety car pit stop to overtake Hamilton on track. Hamilton would push hard to retake the lead but would go off into a gravel trap and have to settle for second. The next race in Bahrain would see Vettel take one of the best wins of his career. After not being able to pit due to an accident with Ferrari's pit crew, the German had to hold off the faster Valtteri Bottas, who was on much fresher tyres. The battle would go down to the final lap, but the German would hold him off to win the first 2 races of the season for the first time since 2011. Ferrari would lock out the front row in China but would throw away the lead after being undercut by the Mercedes of Valtteri Bottas. Later in the race, Vettel was hit by Max Verstappen at the hairpin. This led to the Dutchman getting a penalty and Vettel finishing 8th. So the points after the first 3 races are identical to how they were in reality, but the 4th race of the season in Azerbaijan would see Vettel make his first mistake. After dominating most of the race, Vettel would lose the lead to Valtteri Bottas due to a late safety car caused by the Red Bull collision. Vettel attempted to overtake on the restart but ran wide and ended up finishing 4th. If Vettel didn't make this mistake, he would have won the race after Bottas got a puncture on the next lap. So now Vettel wins with Hamilton 2nd, increasing his championship lead to 16 points. The next 3 races will remain unchanged. Lewis Hamilton will now get his first win of the season in Spain, while a terrible strategy from Ferrari would see Vettel lose 2nd place and finish 4th behind Max Verstappen. Daniel Ricciardo would still win the Monaco Grand Prix with Vettel 2nd and Hamilton 3rd. And in Canada, Vettel takes a dominant win with title rival Hamilton finishing 5th due to power unit problems, giving Vettel a 21-point lead. The French Grand Prix will be the 2nd race of the season that will be changed. At the start of the race, Vettel collided with Bottas and had to battle from the back of the grid after the safety car restart. Mercedes were much quicker this weekend, so I imagine Vettel would finish 3rd with Hamilton leading home a Mercedes 1-2 without Vettel's costly mistake, leaving the German with an 11-point lead. During the Austrian Grand Prix qualifying, Ferrari forgot to tell Vettel over the radio that Sainz was on a fast lap behind him, leading to the German impeding the Spaniard and getting a 3-place penalty. Since this was a team error and not a driver error, I will not change the results of this race, so Vettel still finishes third with Hamilton retiring from the race with a fuel pressure problem, with the points gap increasing to 26 points. The British Grand Prix would see Vettel take another one of his great wins after an amazing battle for the lead, with Bottas and Hamilton in the final few laps of the race. Now that we're at the halfway point of the season, let's compare the standings. Vettel would have a 33-point lead instead of an 8-point lead. The German would also have 5 wins compared to Hamilton's 2. This would be a difficult time for Lewis Hamilton. There were rumours that he was retiring at the end of the season, and I imagine that his retirement at the Austrian Grand Prix and being hit by Kimi Räikkönen at the start of his home race wouldn't help matters. Next up we have the infamous German Grand Prix where Vettel crashed out of the lead of his home race, while Lewis Hamilton would have an incredible win from 14th on the grid. Now you might expect me to say that Vettel would have won this race without his crash, but I have a different opinion. After my research, I think Hamilton would still have won this race without Vettel's crash. Okay, let me explain. After making his pit stop at the perfect time with the rain starting, Hamilton was on average going over a second a lap quicker per lap than Vettel, who himself was going much quicker than everyone else. Of course, he was helped by Vettel's car falling apart and Ferrari forgetting to tell Kimi to let his faster teammate pass for multiple laps, but honestly, even if Vettel didn't crash, I think he would have been hunted down and overtaken by Hamilton on his hotter and fresher tyres, similar to what the Brit did to Verstappen at the 2019 Hungarian Grand Prix and the 2021 Spanish Grand Prix. So Hamilton still gets one of the best wins of his career and decreases Vettel's points lead back to 26 points. The next 2 races will remain the same, with Ferrari's strategy team costing their drivers any chance of fighting for the win in Hungary, and Vettel taking a comfortable win in Belgium after an amazing first lap pass on Hamilton, followed by the Brit screwing up the safety car restart and nearly colliding with the German. Next, we have the Italian Grand Prix. During the weekend, Kimi Räikkönen was informed that he would be replaced at Ferrari by Charles Leclerc in 2019, despite rumours at the time suggesting that Kimi would remain at the team. This led to the Finn coming alive during the weekend. He qualified on pole with the fastest lap in F1 history at the time, and then in the race he had a great battle with Lewis Hamilton for the win. Sadly, Vettel would not join in on this battle, as he had the first of many spins that he would have during the next 3 years. It's difficult to predict how a 3-way battle would have gone during this race, but I think Ferrari would do anything to sacrifice Räikkönen to make sure that Vettel wins Ferrari's home race, with Hamilton finishing second and a frustrated Räikkönen third. At the end of the European season, Vettel would still have a 33-point lead after both title contenders scored 2 wins and 2 second places each in the last 4 races. This would be almost the opposite of reality, where Lewis Hamilton had a 30-point lead. The Singapore Grand Prix was the symbolic death of Vettel and Ferrari's championship aspirations in the real 2018 season. Hamilton had arguably the greatest qualifying lap of his career, and another terrible strategy led to Vettel getting stuck behind Sergio Perez and eventually finishing third, with Lewis Hamilton cutting the German's lead to 23 points. The Russian Grand Prix would also stay the same, with Lewis Hamilton taking another win after Bottas received team orders to let Hamilton through for the championship. This would still be a controversial decision, but I think more people would side with Mercedes here than in reality, due to Vettel leading the championship. Vettel's third place means that the gap comes down to 13 points. Next up is the Japanese Grand Prix, where Ferrari's strategy team would have their biggest screw-up of the season during qualifying. It had been wet during the first 2 sessions, but was dry enough for dry tyres at the start of Q3. Sadly, Ferrari didn't realise this and put Vettel on wets on a dry track. Ferrari realised their error and put Vettel on dry tyres for his next lap. Just as it started to rain, Vettel qualified 9th. Vettel charged through the field early in the race, but made a silly attempt at an overtake on Verstappen and spun off again. Without this mistake, I think Vettel could finish third, while Lewis Hamilton would lead home another Mercedes 1-2, meaning that with 4 rounds to go, Vettel has a 3-point lead in the championship. Next, we have the United States Grand Prix, where Vettel spun out again. This wasn't the German's only mistake of the weekend, though. During FP1, Vettel failed to slow down during a red flag and received a 3-place grid penalty, leading to Vettel starting 5th instead of 2nd. Without this mistake, I assume Vettel would have been given the same strategy as Raikkonen, which means that Vettel now leads home a Ferrari 1-2, while Hamilton would still get stuck behind Raikkonen and Verstappen and now finish 4th. Vettel would now extend his lead to 16 points. The Mexican Grand Prix would stay the same with Vettel finishing 2nd behind Verstappen, while Hamilton would struggle home in 4th place over a minute behind his title rival. With 2 rounds to go, Sebastian Vettel would have a 22-point lead over Lewis Hamilton, while Ferrari would have a 2-point lead over Mercedes in the Constructors' Championship. Vettel would only need to finish ahead of Hamilton to win the championship in Brazil. Lewis Hamilton would need a miracle. And that is exactly what he got. During the Brazilian Grand Prix, Vettel would develop a sensor issue in his car, making him lose speed and have to settle for 6th. Hamilton led the first half of the race but would lose the lead to Verstappen on lap 40. It looked like the Brit would have to settle for 2nd until
Verstappen has lost the lead to Hamilton by spinning out.
You can see it looks like he's got in there. He thought he was all past him when the Force India hit him. Unfortunately, I can't see it, and I'm just watching it on board here. Not really sure what the Force India was trying to do at that point on a back marker.
That was Esteban Ocon.
What an idiot! What an idiot!
He was coming back at him to unlap himself, wasn't he? It was Esteban Ocon, but it's the leader. And he's still fighting with him, but I must say it was the front face of his right rear that took him pounding.
Mercedes junior Esteban Ocon would receive a 10-second stop-go penalty for this incident while Hamilton retook the lead. Verstappen would do everything he could to retake the lead, but the damage to his car was too much, leading to Lewis Hamilton winning the Brazilian Grand Prix and bringing the gap in the championship down from 22 points to just 5, while Max Verstappen and Esteban Ocon would have a friendly debate on their collision after the race. Now we head into the season finale in Abu Dhabi. If either title contender wins the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, they would be guaranteed the championship. In qualifying, Mercedes would lock out the front row, while Vettel would have to settle for 3rd. In the race, Hamilton would pull out a comfortable lead over Bottas, while Vettel would spend the first 35 laps of the race stuck behind the Finn. Vettel would eventually get by and try to catch his title rival, but it would be too little too late.
Car number 44 has really been the number 1 once again. He comes home to win the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix and to crown a championship-winning season with victory in the final race. Sebastian Vettel follows his home as runner-up here and runner-up in the championship as well. Max Verstappen finishes on the podium for Red Bull. Daniel Ricciardo a couple of seconds adrift in his final race for the team before he moves to Renault. Valtteri Bottas a distant 5th after leading the race and looking very good for a podium at one stage. He played second fiddle to his teammate once more.
After 21 races, Lewis Hamilton would win his 5th World Championship by just 2 points over Sebastian Vettel. This would be the second closest championship win the Brit would have had after the 2008 season, where he beat Felipe Massa by just 1 point. Interestingly, Vettel would lead the entire season, only losing the lead at the final race, the opposite of what he did in 2010. Bottas would now finish 3rd in the championship with Kimi Raikkonen dropping to 5th and would sadly win 0 races. This means that Mercedes would still win the Constructors' Championship, while Kimi Raikkonen would sadly miss out on his chance at getting one final win for Ferrari before joining Alfa Romeo in 2019. So how would things be different after this alternative 2018 season? Honestly, I think that everyone would have benefited from Vettel not making mistakes. Vettel himself would obviously benefit as his reputation wouldn't be ruined and he would probably get a lot more sympathy for never winning a world championship for Ferrari without these mistakes. From Lewis Hamilton's perspective, even though his 2018 championship win was already significant since it meant he now drew with Juan Manuel Fangio, I imagine that winning it in an intense fight would elevate it to a whole new level and make his season look even more impressive. And from a fan perspective, without Vettel's mistakes, we would have gotten what we were promised, the fight for 5 between the two dominant forces of the previous 9 years. I could easily have seen this alternative 2018 season talked about as one of the greatest of all time, with two legends going head-to-head all season long. I think that the only people that would be hurt in this situation would be the Ferrari management and strategy team, since Vettel could not be used as a scapegoat without his driver errors. One thing I didn't talk about much in this video was how the death of Ferrari CEO Sergio Marchionne led to a power struggle behind the scenes and turned Ferrari into a toxic mess that was impossible to work with. So what do you think? Do you agree with this video, and how do you think things would be different had Vettel not made any mistakes in 2018? Let me know in the comment section down below, and I will see you next time.